So you know you can end with the Folo Patterson at the end.
Right?
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. No,
Oh,
no, no, that's perfectly fine. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Conversations with Folo. As you see, we've changed it around just a little bit, trying to be COVID minded and 6 feet apart and all those things. My wife made sure of that. But nonetheless, I'm happy to have another guest with me joining in to have a conversation, see what comes out, and hope you enjoy. So, this is James. He is a co-worker of mine, but also a reader of the book. And so we were supposed to actually get together last week and discuss it, but life is life. Things happen. So we are definitely excited to have him with us tonight. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Now, I know you're nervous. So relax, sit back. We just gonna conversate.
Right.
Right? This is what it is. Let's chop it up. And this is important for us because he is actually my relief at my job. So when he comes in, I'm typically preparing to get off. Our conversations are usually 10 to 15 minutes long. And so I've gotten to know him in short spurts over the last few months, but have definitely built a bond and a friendship with him. So this is the first time we get a chance to actually sit down and talk.
Yeah.
And what better way to do it as the book being a basis for that. But before we even go into the book, which is Looking Through the Fog, I want you I want you to have the opportunity to be able to share your story because in those short spurts of conversation that we've had, you really revealed some things to me that I felt needs to be heard by people. You definitely have a story to tell. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to start off just talking about where you've come from.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me.
Oh,
It's a
well.
pleasure. And with that being said, yeah, I've been 2 years clean. As far as it'll be December 28th. I'll be 2 years clean and doing everything the correct way. No drugs, no alcohol, no doing any criminal activity. Everything the right way. But with that being said, it's been a long 2 years. I come from a broken home, parents, drug addicts. Um, in and out of jail, just struggling, not seeing anything where I could progress in life. I always felt like I I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't think that I was capable of being anything more than what I was.
Mm-hmm.
Settling just for getting high, drinking, doing in and out of jail, just thinking that was my life because that's what I saw my parents do. They raised me in that lifestyle, and I figured that's the way that I was supposed to live. While doing that, I had a child. Um, with me, everyone thought that that was going to change my lifestyle, change my way of thinking, which it didn't. So, and her mother was the same way. So that resulted in my grandmother taking her. You know what I'm saying? Having custody of her. Haven't seen her the whole. From that point on, I went to prison. My grandmother got her. Uh, Never seen her again after that. It was 6. She was 6 the last time I saw her.
Wow.
I've been on the street. I've been strung out, things like that, and it wasn't until this last time I really lost everything. Um, 2010, I lost my dad, my mother a year apart. 2010, I lost my dad to cancer. 2011, I lost my mother. So it was like I didn't have anything going for myself. Like at that point, I didn't think that I needed to live. Like just to prove myself to be responsible as a man anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just nobody cares. I lost the best things that were worth living for, which was my mother, my dad, and my daughter. At the time, that's what I thought. And and
That's a lot. I know.
yeah.
I get it. I get it.
And it's it I met like at that point when all of them things happened, I was never homeless. Let me put it like that. I was never homeless. I was just strung out,
Okay.
but I was able to kind of work fast food restaurants, things like that. But I was still maintaining a place to live, pretty kind of keeping myself up. But it wasn't until my my daughter's mother, because she was still my girlfriend at the time. She had a kid for another man when she was still with me. She was pregnant. You know what I'm saying? So that messed me up beyond recognition. You know what I'm saying? Like losing my parents, and then on top of that, 2 years later. You know what I'm saying? So it took me all the way out, all the way out. That's when I started experimenting with more drugs, and that's where it led to me being homeless for 2 years on the street. And I went to jail this last time. It was November 25th. I got locked up. I stayed in jail for a full month because I got out December 25th. I got high 3 days after that, and after that point, I was done because it was a point in my life where I was sitting in jail. It was like I had a reality check, far as I'm getting older. There's things that I want to obtain. I want to be something. I want to be more than what I was. Everything in my past, I'm just being another statistic black man. You know what I'm saying? Falling victim to the streets, being a criminal, in and out of jail, got a baby mama, don't support my child. You know what I'm saying? I'm just falling in that percentage. And I said, man, it's time to make a change. And when I got out on the 25th, I got high to make sure that I wanted to be done. I had to make my mind up. Okay. I got high 3 more days. On the 28th, December 28th, that was it. 2018, I was done. You know what I'm saying? I didn't look back. I didn't turn back or nothing. Went and checked myself into a rehab, and I've been on ever since. I wasn't 1 foot in or 1 foot out. I was all the way in, doing the right thing. I seen my life go from here all the way up. You know what I'm saying? Things that I never thought that I could have, I'm having. I'm experiencing. I'm enjoying. Like, I didn't reach out to none of my family because I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want to give them broken promises. I didn't want to reach out to my daughter to a fact of like telling her something and then follow through with it. So like my year mark, when I was a year clean, some buddies of mine, they said, why don't you reach out to your daughter and see what's up? And because I like in my mindset, I was thinking like I wanted to push it 2 years and then reach out. Because in my mind I wasn't good enough yet, you know what I'm saying? And I got to that point when they recommended that, when they told me to do that, I was like, okay. I reached out to my grandmother and my daughter. The whole time my grandmother was keeping tabs on me because somebody was watching my every move. Okay. The whole time. You know what I mean? So she was
gonna fall off, or
she was watching my progress the whole time. As soon as I reached out to her, she said, "Baby, I've been waiting on you the whole time to call." Wow. And my daughter was 6 the last time I saw her. Now she's 12, and I ain't missed a day yet. You know what I'm saying? Talking to her, involved with her. You know what I'm saying? I plan on taking a trip down here this next year coming up to go see her, spend a week with her. You know what I mean? It's God has been amazing in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because without him, he would have never gave me that reality check to sit down for this last time and make me understand and realize that I am somebody. I am worth something way much more than what I thought I was. The devil was still making me believe that I wasn't nothing when he had so much more in store for me. God, all I had to do was sit down, like you said, looking through the fog the whole time. My lens was finally clear. I had clarity after that point, man, and it's been fantastic ever since.
So let's touch on that for a second. The fact that you got to the point where you had your limit.
Yeah.
Right. You was able to see for yourself how far you had fell off.
Right.
And realize that you were in a unsavory space.
Yeah.
Per se, the fog. Right.
Yeah.
But there's so many times when people, and it's not just men, but people find themselves. When people find themselves in this space but don't realize or recognize what it is, right? And because they don't know how to label it, or even how to explain it, they dismiss it. They continue to repeat, and it was a term, rinse and repeat. Do it over and over again, and for you to have the realization of, okay, it can't be no more. I'm a true believer that God is constantly trying to get our attention. We just don't listen.
Right.
We don't pay attention in return.
Right.
Right. So personally, myself, I'm a living witness. He tried to get my attention too many times to count, and the things that I endured so many times were because of my lack of sensitivity to his voice. So when he is saying those kind of things, it resonates with me, but it also make me realize that there are so many people who still don't get that, who still are tone deaf to that voice. So when you begin to tell me those things, I was like, oh yeah, this book is gonna hit home.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about these characters recognizing the fall. Not being able to identify initially what it was, but knowing that something is off.
Mm-hmm.
So as you begin to go through it yourself and begin to, peel back through the pages, what was one of the first things that stood out to you as far as you beginning your journey into the book?
Okay, so this is how I'm gonna start with this as well. If I wouldn't, I'm gonna be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have never just conversated with you at work or discussed anything far as being able to relate with you on that level,
mm-hmm.
I probably would have never even got into the book.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And even if you would have told me, about your book, and we never would have discussed the things that you went through,
right.
and me relating to that,
right.
I would have never even got into the book. I would have supported you just because that's what we have to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To be on that level. You know what I mean? I have to.
Pause right there.
Yeah.
That's exactly why we're having these conversations, right? For that exact reason. Because we can do the skits all day long.
Right.
We can do the theme song and, all those fun. And I enjoy them. They're fun.
Right.
But people that see that on the surface, they'll have a good laugh but still won't get the book. Right? But when we begin to sit down and talk about in depth the content, the validity of what it reveals and what it pours in, then these are the things that begins to speak to a person's heart and mind. Like, well, maybe I should investigate more. That's why I want to have these conversations, because now we're talking about the meat and potatoes.
Yes, sir.
Sir. About the nitty gritty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So continue.
And so that's what inspired me to want to get more reading. Mm-hmm. That's what inspired me. You overcoming the adversity that you did, and then pursue your dream. I have to.
Yeah.
It's a must.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though, even the time that it took for me to finish it, still, I was not gonna rest until I finished it. You know what I'm saying? So, soon as I read the introduction, I was like, okay, you blatantly made that known that it's not a self-help book and all of that. So I don't relate to self-help books. You know what I'm saying? They just trying to tell you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm with this. All right, so who I am, I said, and I read all the chapters, the titles of the chapters. I was like, I like this. So starting with chapter 1 was opening up, far as him sitting. I was kind of anxious to what I was about to read as well.
Okay.
Because I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
I didn't know if you was, I didn't know if it was just going to be talking about just your experiences, far as going through the whole process of going to jail and things like that, or how you was going to break it down. So when I started reading, and it was far as the whole intake process, as far as the county and the things like that, that got me, because it was like, okay, I've been through that process.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Sitting there waiting 45 days to 3 months. You know what I'm saying? Sitting in county, you got so many people in there that ain't never been. You know what I'm saying? Been down, been to prison. That's telling you what somebody else done told you. Right. Trying to give you the information. So it's like, telling me what to expect when you ain't never been. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's what got me right away. You know what I mean? So that's what intrigued me to want to continue to read more.
I was laughing. I told Queen and somebody else how when you got to the part of Tyler being introduced, you came to work one day
Oh yeah.
and be like, "Oh, it's a story."
I was just about to say that. Because I thought it was just the narrator telling the story. That's it. I swear. Then when it come to find out that somebody else was reading his story, that blew my mind.
Right.
And like I said, my girl was coming out the room running. She was like, "Yo, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "Yo, this book." You know what I'm saying? It just had me. You know what I mean? Like those like the things that stood out to me like that. I was not expecting that because I'm not an adamant reader, but when I do read, I read like criminal mysteries, things like
Suspense
that.
and stuff. Yeah.
Suspense, yeah. I've never, like I said, I've never been into self-help books. I read some scriptures out the Bible, but far as that, I've never read any other novel. And like this is like the only one that really had me in. But like I said, it started with you, me and you relating to each other.
Right.
That piqued my interest in the book in the first place. And
so tell me this: how would you describe Tyler?
Just someone miserable with his life, trying to find something, trying to find a way to make it better.
Okay.
You know, as well as myself. Like a couple of years ago, the same way. I knew that I needed to do something. I knew I needed to make my life right, but I just didn't know where the strength was going to come from. Where was I going to get everything that I needed from? And not knowing God fully or the things that He is capable of just from listening to other people experiences, that wasn't my experience.
Right.
Because in my mind frame, my past, I had bad experiences. You know what I'm saying? Far as because you get in that mindset as far as, God, why you take my parents at a young age? This, that, and the third, because you battle with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you was God, you know what I mean, you wouldn't have let this happen. You know what I'm saying? There's those things that makes you, you know, not want to be involved with anything that has to do with God. You know what I mean? So, as my mind, as I continued, as I started to want to change things in my life, that's when I started recognizing it was never God's fault. You know what I'm saying? That's the way of life, point blank. And He is always going to be there for us, love us, and help me recognize that I'm worth way more than I ever thought I was.
And, you know, and that's the thing. Tyler had no understanding of anything of that nature whatsoever. There was no dynamic of that in his life at all.
Right.
So being in that space of lostness, is that a word, lostness? It is tonight, huh?
There it is.
Being in that space of fogginess, and not understanding why you are there.
Yeah.
Or even the true source of the problems to begin with, it becomes, you know, something that compounds itself. And next thing you know, one little issue in life then turn into multiple issues because they're now stacking on top of each other. And we've all been there. I can relate to that personally. And when I was thinking about Tyler and how he related to the perception of his life around him, I can remember being somewhat happy because we had a good life at one point. And even though I should have been over the moon about what we had going on, my life was miserable in so many ways. There was so much pressure and so many things that were weighing on me consistently that, you know, for me to truly say I enjoy life was in small glimpses. And even then when I enjoyed life, it wasn't the way I should have enjoyed it. It was more so me compensating for the weight I was carrying versus me actually being happy.
Right.
But I didn't know how to describe that at the time because of the space I was in. So when I'm writing Tyler out and trying to define his character, you know, it became easy for me to relate to the lens that he looked through. Even though I knew who God was, there was no relationship, you know. So it was just as bad as me not knowing him at all, you know. But for Tyler, you know, he didn't want to be miserable anymore. So when you talk about, you know, getting to the point of being done, you know, his blow up, his interaction, his fallout with his wife really brought that out of him because he was so tired of being in that space, but seemed like he was oblivious to how to come out of it. You know, and you know, for me, it's like, okay, how do we express the fact that there is a way out? You know, and as we journey through the book, you know, he takes this road and begins to unravel that piece by piece. Now, how did Amber come across to you?
Oh, how they, yeah.
You got to think about that.
Yeah, bougie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you know, that's just the way she was raised. You know what I mean? And like they described, like how you described it in the book, like it was mainly the parents' fault, and that's what I could relate to too. You know how you raise. That's what you're gonna be. That's what you're gonna become. Product of your environment. You know, and that's what resonated with me as well because I related to both of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, and I gotta say this too because it got a little emotional far as like when her mother broke down and told her like I raised you wrong. And that was the same thing with my mother. You know what I'm saying? She told me the same thing. I wish I would have been a better mother to you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I was already in prison at the time, and she had 2 weeks to live. So that was the same thing.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it hit me. It hit me back. You know what I'm saying? It took me back to that point. Like, damn. I mean, dang. I'm sorry.
As y'all see, this is a real conversation because, and we're not gonna edit it. It is what it is. I'm talking, right. but filter, please.
You're right. I apologize. But yeah, it was really it got to me, and it was just one of those things that, like, I'm glad that I read this book because it showed how together they both overcame those things. You know what I'm saying? Just the communication part and wanting something better for each other and helping each other out of that fog. You know what I mean?
It's interesting that you say that because one of the dynamics that I really wanted to try to show was just what you talked about, how both Tyler in the space he was in, but also Amber in the space she was in, both directly came from the seeds that are already planted in them. You know, and that's why we have to be mindful about what we pour into our children, because what they see, what they hear, leaves a lasting imprint and shapes the very perception and lens they look through. We can think they're not hearing it or it's resonating, but believe me, it is. And Tyler, his resentment was so long overdue, and it came from something that was deep seated from from his childhood. Amber, her lostness, that same word again, her lostness or her delusion of life was still based upon what she was taught as a child, but didn't really line up with true values of a responsible relationship, right? So same thing into your walk. The life you've seen was the life that you reflected. Yeah. And it had its own ripple effects, which then had a ripple effect on what you and your child. Yeah. It becomes generational. Yeah. Right? So if we don't begin to recognize that there's a source to the space that we are in, then we will perpetuate that source over and over and over again. You know, the cause that comes from that effect will be more of the same result. And then we're going to be wondering, why am I stuck with it? Because you keep doing the same thing. You know, they had been together for X amount of years, and their relationship seemed to diminish instead of flourish because that pattern was repeating itself. You know, so what's wonderful though is how you're able to see the comparison of your life in the midst of these characters, even though their situation is different. And that's what's really good about this book, I really believe, is that it's not necessarily have to be the same story for the individual, but it's the mindsets. It's the lens we look through. So when we look at the characters and their situation and what's happening with them. It's about comparing it to what we are dealing with in our very own lives. Yes, scenarios completely different, different kind of setting, but the way I react to it, my response, my choice, and decisions that come from it still all the same. And that I began to discover unfolded as I began to write this. I'm like, okay, if people can relate to this part, like I'm seeing it in my head, then we have something here, and you are definitely, a witness of that. What I just realized though is that we are running a little extended here. So what we're gonna do, for the sake of viewer time, we're going to end this segment and call it part one. But definitely going to continue our conversation in part two because we definitely have more to talk about. We thank you for watching this. Once again, this is Conversations with Folo Patterson. We are looking through the fog. Our guest is James. I'm sorry, my wife says Folo Patterson. She wants me to be very clear. It's followpatterson.com where you can find the book. I have also all the social media links there as well. But make sure you follow us, subscribe, share, like. This is something we're trying to explore and do more of, and we hope you enjoy. Tune in for part two.